Let me tell you something. There's a danger in being too nice, a real danger. Not the kind that jumps out of the dark, but the kind that creeps into your life wearing a smile. It looks harmless, it looks like kindness, it looks like being good. But slowly, without you even knowing, it starts stealing pieces of who you are. Some of you have spent your whole life trying to make everybody happy. You've said yes when you wanted to say no. You've apologized for things that weren't even your fault. You've carried the weight of other people's problems while your own soul was begging for rest. You've mistaken being nice for being good. But there's a difference, a big difference. Being good means doing what's right. Being nice often means doing what's easy, for them, not for you. And that's where the danger lies. I learned a long time ago that when you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. If you don't define your limits, people will define them for you. They'll take your silence as permission. They'll take your kindness as weakness. And before you know it, you're not living your life. You're living theirs. You see, being too nice can make you forget who you are. You start bending yourself just to fit into spaces you were never meant to belong. You shrink your voice so others can feel comfortable in their insecurity. You dim your light so nobody complains that you're shining too bright. And then one day you look in the mirror and don't even recognize the person staring back. You call it love, you call it peace, you call it humility, but deep down, it's fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of confrontation, fear of standing alone. And fear, it's a thief. It will rob you of your truth and sell it back to you wrapped in politeness. Let me tell you something. The world doesn't need you to be nice. The world needs you to be honest. It needs you to be firm. It needs you to be real. Because when you're real, people might not like you, but they will respect you. And respect will take you farther than approval ever will. Some people are addicted to approval. They live for applause. They measure their worth by how many people smile at them. But let me tell you something. Fake smiles are cheap. They cost you everything when you start depending on them. You don't owe anyone your peace just to keep theirs. You don't have to bleed just so others can heal. You don't have to break yourself into pieces so everyone else feels whole. There's strength in setting boundaries. There's power in saying no. And there's freedom in walking away from anything that demands you betray yourself to keep it. I've seen too many good people burn out because they couldn't stop giving. They thought if they just gave a little more, loved a little harder, served a little longer, things would change. But all they did was drain their soul dry. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot keep everyone warm if you're standing in the cold without a coat. You've got to stop confusing kindness with self-sacrifice. Kindness is strength under control. It's love with wisdom. But being too nice, that's love without wisdom, compassion without boundaries, and generosity without discernment. And that's not strength. That's self-neglect. People will use you as long as you let them. That's not cynicism. That's reality. The moment you start saying no, they'll call you selfish. The moment you stand your ground, they'll say you've changed. Of course you've changed. You've learned, you've realized your worth. And sometimes that realization makes others uncomfortable. But you cannot let their discomfort become your guilt. I remember once being told, Denzel, if you try to make everybody happy, you'll end up miserable, because not even God tries to make everyone happy. And that hit me hard. Think about it. Even God allows rejection. Even God allows misunderstanding. So why do we think we have to please everyone? You can love people without losing yourself in them. You can care deeply without being consumed. You can forgive without reopening doors that lead to destruction. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's growth. Some of you here tonight are exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing too much for the wrong people. You've become the emotional janitor in other people's mess. Every time someone spills their pain, you're the one mopping it up. Every time someone breaks, you're the one picking up the pieces. But when you fall apart, who's there for you? Silence, empty space, and a reminder that not everyone deserves access to your kindness. You've got to guard your energy, protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still say no. You can be giving and still keep something for yourself. Don't ever feel guilty for that. People who truly love you will respect your limits. People who only love what you give them will resent them. And that's how you know the difference. Listen to me. There's a kind of strength in restraint. There's a beauty in balance. You don't have to scream to be strong. You don't have to fight every battle. But you do have to know which battles are worth fighting, and your peace, your dignity, your self-respect, they are always worth fighting for. Being too nice can blind you to manipulation. You start justifying bad behavior. Oh, they didn't mean it? They're just going through something? It's fine. I'll handle it. No, it's not fine, because every time you excuse someone else's disrespect, you're teaching them how to treat you. You're telling them it's okay to hurt you as long as they say sorry afterward. You're letting them rehearse your forgiveness. Stop rehearsing forgiveness for people who don't plan to change. Forgive them, yes, but learn the lesson. You are not required to carry anyone's lessons for them. And let me tell you, when you finally stop being too nice, the first thing that happens is silence. People who used to call you every day disappear. People who leaned on you suddenly act distant. Don't take that silence as loss. Take it as proof that you've been liberated from false relationships. Some connections only existed because you allowed yourself to be drained. The moment you stop feeding their comfort, they'll find another source. Let them. You've got to understand this peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of power. The power to say no, the power to walk away, the power to choose yourself without apology. That's what real peace looks like. I've met people who think being strong means being hard. No, being strong means being centered. It means having control over your emotions, not being controlled by other people's expectations. It means knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to give, and when to stop giving. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. You can still be warm without being walked on. You can still smile without being spenless. You can still serve without being used. That's the balance of true character. And if you ever start to wonder why this message matters, let me remind you, every great leader, every artist, every visionary had to learn this lesson. To rise above the noise, you must stop trying to please it. If you spend your life chasing applause, you'll miss your calling. If you spend your life avoiding rejection, you'll never step into purpose. I've learned this in my own journey. There were moments where I tried too hard to please everybody. The directors, the critics, the crowd. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be perfect. But I realized perfection is an illusion, and pleasing everyone is a prison. The only freedom is in authenticity, doing what you're called to do, even when it offends someone's comfort. You're not responsible for how people choose to perceive your strength. You're only responsible for living in your truth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You've seen the pattern, you've learned the lesson, and you know your worth. That's wisdom in motion. You want to live a life of peace. Start by cleaning your circle. Stop letting takers sit at tables where they never bring anything to eat. Stop investing in people who only show up when they need something. You can't build your future with people who are comfortable in your past. Some of you are carrying guilt for outgrowing people. Don't. Growth means movement. It means some things and some people can't come with you. Don't apologize for that. God didn't design you to stay small so others could stay comfortable. Being too nice will have you shrinking yourself to fit into conversations that insult your destiny. It will have you explaining your dreams to people who don't even believe in their own. It will have you fighting for relationships that are already dead. Let go. The danger of being too nice is that you lose your edge, you lose your fire, you lose the part of you that was meant to roar. And you start whispering your dreams because you're scared someone might think you're arrogant. But let me tell you something. Humility is not denying your power. It's knowing your power and choosing to use it with grace. You can't fulfill your purpose by being everyone's comfort zone. Some people need to be uncomfortable around you because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your faith exposes their fear. Don't apologize for that. Let your light make people uncomfortable. That's how the dark learns what light looks like. The world needs nice people, yes, but it needs them to be wise too. Because nice without wisdom becomes knave. And naivety is dangerous. It makes you believe everyone's intentions are pure. It makes you ignore red flags until they turn into regrets. Don't do that to yourself. Trust, but test. Love, but don't lose logic. Give, but don't give up your ground. That's how you survive with grace. And I'll tell you something else. People respect consistency more than kindness. They may not like you for setting boundaries, but they'll remember you for it. You'll teach them that your time has value, your energy is worth, and your heart is not a charity for emotional freeloaders. At the end of the day, you've got one soul to protect, one purpose to fulfill, one life to live. Don't waste it trying to make everyone else comfortable. You can't save people who are committed to staying broken. You can only show them what healing looks like by choosing it for yourself. And when you do, when you finally stop living for approval and start living for truth, you'll feel it. Peace, real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion. The kind that lets you sleep at night knowing you were honest. You were kind, but you didn't betray yourself in the process. So to everyone listening, stop being too nice. Start being real. Be kind, but be firm. Be gentle, but be grounded. Be loving, but be wise. Because your kindness should never cost your self-respect. Remember, the lion doesn't apologize for roaring. The eagle doesn't apologize for flying. And you shouldn't apologize for being who you are. Because when you stop being too nice, you don't become cold, you become clear, you don't become cruel, you become strong. And that strength, that clarity, that truth, that's where your power lies. So stand tall, speak truth, love deeply but wisely, and never, ever lose yourself trying to please a world that was never meant to understand your fire. That's how you rise. That's how you win. The moment you stop being too nice, you start becoming powerful. You start seeing yourself differently. You start walking differently. There's a shift in the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you make decisions. Because for the first time in your life, you're no longer apologizing for existing. You're no longer shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. You're no longer trading your truth for temporary peace. You start realizing that every time you said yes, when you meant no, you were giving away a piece of your power. Every time you smiled through disrespect, every time you stayed silent when your spirit screamed for you to speak, you were handing over control of your life to someone else. And when that stops, everything changes. Power isn't about being louder. It's not about controlling others or dominating the room. Power is quiet, it's presence. It's knowing who you are and what you stand for, even when nobody claps for you. When you stop being too nice, you stop performing for acceptance. You stop chasing approval like it's oxygen. You start breathing in confidence and exhaling self-doubt. You stop waiting for validation because you understand your value. You no longer depend on people to tell you who you are. You tell them by how you live, by what you tolerate, by what you walk away from. It's a strange thing. When you finally stop being too nice, the world doesn't clap, it tests you. People who once adored you begin to question you. They'll call you arrogant, they'll say you've changed, they'll whisper that success has made you cold. But what they're really saying is, you're no longer easy to control, you're no longer available for emotional manipulation, you've stopped letting guilt dictate your choices, That's what real power looks like. When you can say no without anger, when you can walk away without explanation, when you can love people deeply, but not let their chaos become your identity. The problem with being too nice is that it makes you forget how to say no. You convince yourself that love means sacrifice, that goodness means surrender, that peace means pleasing everyone. But peace built on pretending isn't peace, it's performance. And when you spend too long pretending, you forget your real self underneath the mask. You lose the sound of your own voice. But when you stop being too nice, that voice returns. It's been whispering all along, waiting for you to listen. It tells you enough carrying burdens that aren't yours, enough apologizing for boundaries, enough allowing people to take from you because you're afraid they'll leave if you don't. When you listen to that voice, you step into power, quiet, grounded, undeniable power. You begin to see that being too nice wasn't kindness, it was fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish. But when you let go of that fear, when you understand that the opinions of others cannot define your worth, you become untouchable. You start saying what you mean and meaning what you say. You stop sugarcoating truth just to avoid tension. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop justifying your peace. That's power. That's clarity. That's strength. When you stop being too nice, your time becomes sacred. You stop giving it away to things that don't grow you. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your energy. You stop showing up in rooms that no longer align with your purpose. You begin to value silence more than empty talk. You begin to value solitude more than company that costs you your sanity. And it's not pride. It's not ego. It's self-preservation, because when you truly know your worth, you stop bargaining for discounts. Power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. It comes from integrity, from doing what's right even when it's not comfortable. You start setting boundaries not to push people away, but to protect your spirit. You start realizing that your kindness doesn't require you to be accessible to everyone. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone deserves your trust. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Some people see your light and want to drain it just to feel warm. Some people see your calm and want to disturb it just to see if they still have control. And when you stop being too nice, you stop letting them. There's a new peace that comes with power, a deep, still kind of peace. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. You stop rescuing people from the consequences of their own choices. You stop carrying guilt for choosing yourself. You begin to understand that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't heal people who refuse to face their own wounds. So you let go. You let life teach them what your words never could. That's not cruelty, that's wisdom. The world teaches us to equate niceness with virtue, but niceness is often an act. It's diplomacy dressed up as goodness. Real goodness requires truth. Real goodness requires courage. Sometimes real goodness offends people because truth offends lies. Discipline offends laziness. Confidence offends insecurity. So when you start standing in your power, people who've benefited from your compliance will get uncomfortable. Don't take that as a sign to go back to pleasing them. Take it as confirmation that you're growing. Power means knowing when to engage and when to walk away. When you stop being too nice, you don't fight every battle. You choose wisely. You conserve your energy. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who are determined to cross them. You stop seeking closure from those who never intended to give it. You stop trying to convince people of your worth. You just live it. You let your peace speak louder than your arguments. You let your silence do the teaching. And you start to notice something. When you step into power, you attract different people. You begin to draw in souls who respect your space, who value your energy, who meet you with the same level of care you give. You begin to experience relationships built on mutual respect, not emotional dependency. You begin to feel seen without having to perform. That's what power attracts: authenticity. It filters out everything else. You stop running after those who walked away. You stop begging to be understood. You stop apologizing for being misunderstood. You realize that not everyone deserves access to you. You realize that your life doesn't have to be an open door for every wandering soul looking for shelter. Some people are lessons, not lifelong guests. You can be grateful for what they taught you and still move on without resentment. That's power, the ability to release without bitterness. When you stop being too nice, you start commanding respect, not by force, but by presence. People sense it. They notice it in the way you say no without guilt, in the way you walk away from drama without explanation, in the way you speak your truth calmly, without needing anyone's approval. That's the kind of strength that can't be faked. It's the strength of someone who has faced themselves, who has done the hard work of choosing authenticity over approval. You begin to understand that peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's an intentional choice made every day. You wake up and decide what deserves your attention, what deserves your energy, what deserves your heart. You start saying no to distractions that come disguised as obligations. You stop running after people who clearly show you they don't value your time. You start investing that time into growth, into your craft, into your calling. You start becoming unstoppable, not because you're ruthless, but because you're focused. You stop apologizing for wanting more purpose, more respect, more alignment, more truth. You stop settling for half love and half effort. You stop pretending that it's fine when it's not. You stop staying silent just to avoid awkwardness, because you know now that your silence only feeds their comfort. And your discomfort has lasted long enough. The moment you stop being too nice, you stop waiting for permission to be great. You stop asking people to validate your dreams. You stop dimming your light so others can shine. You step into your calling unapologetically. You start walking with a kind of authority that doesn't need explanation. You start moving like someone who finally remembers who they are. And once you remember that, nobody can take it from you. When you stop being too nice, life begins to test that power. It sends you challenges to see if you mean what you say. It sends you moments where you have to choose between comfort and integrity. And every time you choose integrity, every time you stand firm, every time you honor your boundaries, your power grows. You build muscle in your soul. You develop a kind of resilience that no one can shake. You start speaking less and doing more. You stop warning people about your boundaries. You enforce them. You stop begging people to treat you right. You leave when they don't. You stop chasing closure. You create peace on your own. You stop reacting. You respond with wisdom. And that's when life starts working for you, not against you. Because you're no longer moving from desperation. You're moving from clarity. You see, being too nice was never about love. It was about fear. It was about needing to be seen, to be accepted, to belong. But once you learn to give that to yourself, you no longer need it from others. You start moving from fullness, not emptiness. You start giving because you want to, not because you're afraid of being alone. You start helping from abundance, not from guilt. And that's real love, love that doesn't drain you. There will be people who miss the old version of you, the version who always said yes, who always rescued, who always kept the peace. Let them miss you. Let them call you difficult, distant, cold. Because you're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're discerning. You're not difficult, you're done with disrespect. That's what evolution looks like. It confuses those who only knew how to use you. When you stop being too nice, you start living intentionally. Every word, every step, every decision becomes deliberate. You begin to design your life instead of reacting to it. You stop being pulled in 100 directions by other people's needs. You start moving in one direction, forward. You begin to feel peace where you used to feel panic. You begin to feel purpose where you used to feel guilt. You begin to feel freedom where you used to feel obligation. You start to see that not everyone deserves the softest parts of you. Some people haven't earned that access. Your heart is not public property, it's sacred ground. And when you stop being too nice, you start guarding it like it's sacred. You stop explaining why. You just protect it because you know the cost of not doing so. You've lived it. You've given too much before. You've loved without balance. You've forgiven without boundaries. And now you've learned when you stop being too nice, you don't become harder. You become wiser. You stop seeing the world through the lens of what you wish it was and start seeing it for what it is. You stop romanticizing potential and start respecting patterns. You stop hoping people will change and start believing what they show you. That's not bitterness. That's discernment. You stop giving your best to those who give you their bare minimum. You stop defending people who wouldn't defend you. You stop prioritizing people who only remember you when it's convenient. And when you do that, you create space for new energy, new people, new blessings to enter. The universe responds to boundaries. It respects those who respect themselves. When you stop being too nice, you learn that saying no is an act of love for yourself and for others. Because when you say no to what drains you, you're saying yes to your purpose. You're saying yes to your peace. You're saying yes to becoming everything you were meant to be. And when you live from that place, you radiate something different. Confidence, strength, alignment. People feel it. They may not understand it, but they feel it.